Hi there friends, welcome to my beginner's guide for Soulash. I'm Icon and in this video I'm going to cover everything you need to know to enjoy this game. I have put timestamps in the description box which will lead you to all the various topics of this video, so if you're looking for something in particular, go check them out. The first thing I want to do is give you a quick wrap-up about what this game is. Soulash is a classic fantasy roguelike, so that means if your character dies, you'll have to restart all over again. It's also a villain game, so you get to play the bad guy. Your goal is to destroy the world. You start out small with tiny villages until you eventually kill kings and even bigger things. You get to select from a variety of different races and professions to wreak havoc upon the world. The game also features a nice crafting and life skill system, so it's a sandboxy blend between a roguelike and, well, a life simulator, because you can go mining, fishing, tinkering, tailoring, whatever you want. It's really fun and offers a pretty interesting experience. It's very unique for sure in what it does. The character creation is the next thing that I want to cover in this video. So when you select the character, you get to select the race and the profession. The race is influencing your gameplay quite immensely because, you know, vampires need blood, liches need life force, golems need coal. Every race here has its own set of quirks and traits. If you are feeling overwhelmed by this all, just go with a human. They don't need any extra explanation except for they're good at learning. The professions are divided roughly into melee classes, magic classes, and ranged classes. So the Fallen Knight is pretty straightforward, as well as the Berserker, as well as the Warlock. Stat-wise, distribution is quite simple. Strength is the stat for people that want to get up close. Dexterity improves the damage of ranged characters, and intelligence improves the damage of spellcasters. My personal approach is whatever I try to play, I'm going to pick up, for example, here, let's go for the Berserker, or no, let's take the Fallen Knight. Let's play a Troll Fallen Knight. So I can already see this skill here is a melee skill, so I put 4 of my skills into strength, and the other 2 into endurance and willpower. Endurance and willpower are the defensive stats of this game. This one, endurance is for physical damage and willpower is for magical damage. You can't do much wrong with that. So this is pretty much all that you need to know about character creation. You can do a lot of wonderful things with the races, and I can only recommend you to explore them to your heart's content, because there's really a lot to discover there. But I want to start out with a more developed character for the remainder of the tutorial to show you all the other options we got. So next thing we see, I want to talk about the user interface. Up here we see our character's stats, pretty important stuff. Red bar, health, goes to 0, you're dead. This one is your stamina. Stamina is used for movement, combat, spellcasting, everything. If it goes to 0, you need to rest before you can do anything. This tiny little bar behind there is your fatigue. You accumulate fatigue while you consume stamina. Fatigue only gets removed when you sleep. The green and the blue bar here are hunger and thirst. I don't think I need to explain what happens when they go empty. Down here we have our text box, gives you every readout in relation of what you do down in the world. Here we have our quick skill bar. We have our quick skills in there, and the blue bar down there is your level up bar. There's a couple of buttons showing your menus, but we're gonna get there in a sec. I just want to talk about the mini-map up here first. It's also showing you the time of the day when you mouse over this little thing. Soulash is a game which is best played with keyboard and mouse in my humble experience. So let's talk about the menus real quick. So down here you have access to all the menus. I'm going to keep the shortcuts and the key bindings in this game as low as possible. So if you want to control everything with keyboard, you will find the key mapping here. So if you want to know how to control everything with keyboard, there you go. But Soulash is a very accessible roguelike. The amount of controls is quite low, and most controls are accessible via graphical buttons like these here. So the first menu I want to discover with you guys together is the inventory. The inventory, well, all these menus here are accessible with the small, with the buttons. Did you see here the letters I, for example, for inventory? Well, focus. It's quite straightforward, isn't it? So we have here our backpack, our equipment, and our character stats. You see here what kind of slots we have, and we see here our maximum carrying capacity and the stuff we carry around with us. Everything that you can, that you left click gets a little bit of an interaction thing here, so we could either equip the hatchet, drop the hatchet, or salvage the hatchet. Salvaging items dissolves them into their materials they were produced out of, or at least a portion of that, and everything in the game is interactable via this backpack menu. So you pick up things and then you interact with them out of your backpack, usually. So the next menu there I want to talk about is your crafting menu. So here you can craft whatever you want. If you mouse over stuff, you see the requirements, and to craft things you need the recipe, the tools, and the resources. And as you see here, I'm able to craft the primitive sword because I have a cutting tool and I have 2 piles of bones. So this is your crafting menu. This is your map. The map here shows the environment. It's controllable with WASD. You can go up layers and down layers with it. The world has lots of different levels, so there's really a lot to discover. So see here, the world's quite big. The world itself is also fixed and also offering you variations of the regions with every gameplay. Now, did I miss a spot? I don't think so. There's one thing, the skill book. The skill book is featuring all your learned skills and your consumables. As you see here, the bandage and the frost armor are consumables of mine. To put something into the hotbar, you just select it once here out of the skill book and left click it another time here, there. You can overwrite things just like that. Easy, but worth mentioning. So beyond that, there's not much more in terms of menus that I need to explain. I just want to mention that whenever you are in the vicinity of something that you can interact with, new buttons here will show up. These are your interactable buttons. So for example, getting closer to that corpse opens up the butchery menu and the drag item menu. So keep an eye out for things in your world. Also, everything in the world can be examined by holding down the left shift button on your keyboard and mouse overing. Whenever you see something cyan in the text box, like here, butcher 0%, then it means that's the interaction you can do with that. So for example, here, spruce, cut wood. This gives you always a hint about what you can do with these items. So for example, give me a sec, let's get over there. There's a perch, that's a fish. By the way, items nearby are always displayed like that. You simply left click them to pick them up. Very simple. So you see here, the perch is a fish that you could eat directly. Food 40 means that it will replenish 40 units of food there, but you could also just butcher it. And then, as you see here, we butchered and we picked up 8 fish meat. So, whoops, that was the fishman corpse. The perch yielded 2 fish meat. But that's how it works. Over here we see a mill, so we could carry our grain over there to mill it, as you see here. Wait a sec, I'll show you. There's a wheat field over there, and because we're carrying a scythe, we could also harvest. You see, it goes really deep. So that's enough about user interface and menus. The next thing I want to talk about is how the movement here works. You already saw me moving, but Soulash takes the facing of your character into account. Most roguelikes don't, this one does. As you see here, there's a small blue arrow on my character, and it's moving. With Q and E, I'm changing the facing of my character, and then I can still use W for moving forward, and A and D for strafing, S for moving backwards. So in this game, for movement, you first select the rotation, so to say, and then you move into that direction. This is pretty cool because enemies have a real chance of sneaking up on you like that, and it's after I grew used to it, I really started to like it. For movement, well, you always need stamina. And to refill stamina, you either press this button here, or you press the R button on your keyboard. The R button on your keyboard is also really useful to just wait a turn. So, combat in this game is very, very simple, and I want to explain it as well. So we now know how to move. You see here the sheep. As soon as something living is moving into your field of vision, you see a little bit of attack there. So let's move over there. Oh, there's even a better victim. There's an old man. Enemies can also be examined like that. You get a little bit of a description, and most importantly, looks powerless against you. So that's what we want to see. So let's move over there. And combat-wise, there's two things we can do. Either you walk on top of your enemy, and then you just give him a straight-up smack with your weapon that you have equipped right now. If you want to use skills, you just press the according quick link. So let's use smite. So I press the button 2 of my keyboard, and then I have it on my mouse. As you see here, the targeting is following my cursor, and then I just left click the enemy I want to smack with that. I can also alternatively just click the spell and just left click as well. Right click does abort that, and you can also, of course, fire onto empty squares. Your spells usually cost you resources, as you see here. Stamina 7 required, and spells and skills usually scale off your weapon damage. So that's a little bit of an odd thing in this game, but that means even as a spellcaster, it is important for me to wield strong weapons because they define my weapon damage. Here's another thing about combat. Using your weapons, even for spellcasting, eats up durability. Don't ask me why, this is how the game works. I find it highly incomprehensible, but it is as it is. When the durability of an item goes to 0, it gets transferred into your inventory and is unusable until it is repaired. The game will automatically re-equip the next best weapon out of your backpack to keep fighting. So you either salvage broken weapons to gain some new resources out of that and have a chance to learn the recipe. The higher your intelligence, the higher the chance. Or you just have replacement weapons in your backpack like I do here. Here's one annoying thing though, and I hope the dev does change that in the future. Sometimes the game will also automatically equip tools of yours. So for example, my knife here, I'm only carrying this to butcher corpses. If it gets auto-equipped though and gets broken by using it against enemies, I can't butcher with it anymore. So keep a close eye on what kind of items you equip until there is a sort of auto-equip lock implemented, because right now I have found no option for that. Feel free to leave me a comment if you know a workaround around this problem. Until then, I can only say don't accidentally break your tools by fighting with them. It's really obnoxious if it happens. Now, I want to talk about crafting in the next part, because it's a very vital and important part of the game. I'm also going to talk about nutrition and hunger and thirst here at the same spot, because I think this is a wonderful part to explain crafting. As I've already mentioned, crafting is working all together out of this here. All these items can be crafted. Lots of them I have learned by disassembling them. Sometimes you have recipes lying around in the world teaching you how to do this. For example, the energy potion was a recipe I found, so it would need me an alchemist table, an empty vial, wheat, grain, and apples. So all these things, well, as you see here, when you mouse over these areas, you see what kind of tool qualities they have. More often than not, we have to check out, or you'll have to search for your spots where you can actually work at, and therefore keep in mind where your work spots are. So here I want to show you one thing which is pretty cool. So we have plundered a tavern, and over here is a hearth. So this is a fireplace and it's a cooking workplace. So every crafting recipe which would need a cooking place would be doable now here. I want to show you as well how to set up your meat here. For example, I'm standing now next to a cooking spot, and therefore I can cook now this stuff while I'm clicking it. So, and it transforms into cooked fish meat. Eating is quite simple. We just eat that. Num num. Crafting is very, very cool and brings you far. So, for example, early craft that I can recommend you are get yourself a goat skin for liquids. It's so good because otherwise you're forced to find water sources wherever you are. For example, here, fountains. You can't just step next to a fountain and just press this one here, and then mouse and then click the fountain. Or you press just N and click the fountain. It's up to you. But as you see here, our thirst is quenched and we're back on track again. So to get rid of fatigue and all these things, it's not exactly crafting, but I wanted to talk about it as well. You need to rest up. And when you're resting up, as you see here, search for beds, resting place, 150%. That means this thing increases your resting time. So we're sleeping, and as you see here, while we're sleeping, the fatigue gets reduced. You also can rest until you're healed when you're wounded. There's a lot of cool interactions there. So that pretty much sums up all you need to know about crafting, nutrition, and these things, because everything else is pretty self-explanatory with the things I showed to you. Next thing I want to talk about is exploration. When you check out the map, you see there's all these question marks all over the place. They are showcasing points of interest in the world. So every question mark is a region that you can actually enter and discover. For example, this here is a dwarven mine. This was one of the cyan question marks. As far as I've seen things, the question marks also give you a depiction about the difficulty level, but I'm not entirely sure about that. The red question marks are definitely the more dangerous spots. So, for example, one red exclamation mark that I explored here was a garrison, so take them carefully. All in all, the world is huge to explore, and there's really a lot to discover, and I can only recommend you to just go crazy. There's so much there, and every run is a little bit different, and the exploration of a world is by far one of the most fun things. Here's a couple of tips though. Always keep in mind that your character will need food and drink to sustain, unless you're playing a race that doesn't bother with that. So keep yourself stocked up with food and drink, or just don't go too far away from your starting spot. Leather for a goat skin can be either found by butchering bunnies and such, or disassembling leather clothing that you can find from your victims. So all in all, it's up to you, and while you're exploring, always keep one golden rule of roguelikes in mind. You don't need to fight everything at once. So if an enemy looks dangerous, by all means, run away. If you see a situation where you feel overwhelmed, run away and try to take the enemies one by one. There's one foolproof way to lose your life, and that's taking every fight as it is. Now, next thing that I want to talk about is how to do character development in this game. I mean, it is quite obvious that we level up the more experience we gain. Here's one thing though, the stronger you grow, the more hungry your character grows for more and more powerful souls. Each level up offers you a couple of stat points, so I want to cover the stat points here real quick. I already mentioned that during character generation, but there's a little bit more to that. Each stat also offers some other benefits. So strength also increases your carrying capacity. Dexterity is also reducing your chance that somebody will notice you, for example, so you can sneak better. Intelligence also increases your chance to learn crafting recipes while disassembling and reduces crafting time, and so on and so forth. There's always a good reason to have all these stats, but in my personal experience, I always had the best experience with focusing into my damage stat and then focusing into endurance and willpower. It's the same I said in the beginning, I know, but here's the deeper explanation. Endurance lowers your damage by physical sources, whereas it's on willpower side to reduce your magical damages. That alone is pretty cool, but willpower also increases your regenerations of health and stamina, whereas endurance reduces the consumption of these. So these stats are highly synergistic with each other and should be really pumped up on pretty much every character, because there is literally no character which wouldn't benefit from these. The other two stats, so there's always two stats that aren't on your primary tab. Don't try to focus too hard on them. I can understand if you want more strength for more carrying capacity and whatnot, but I'd strongly recommend you to go for methods of increasing those stats via equipment instead of your stat points. When it goes down to the skills you unlock, well, you should always decide with your own taste, because every level up gives you the selection of 3 different skills, one from your class and 2 quite randomly chosen, and you should really pick up skills that make you happy and feel like you're going to use them a lot. Don't pick skills where you're like, this sounds pretty cool, but if it's going like that, you're most likely not going to use them too much. So with your character development, pick up skills that you really think you'll use most. And that's pretty much where we're at the end of this video. To win this game is a pretty hard thing, and you'll have to do it without dying, and I don't think that's possible at all from the get-go. Here's a couple of thoughts from me as a player who's with roguelikes since a long, long time. Losing is part of the experience. Don't go mad if you lose. Be happy if you lose. You've discovered a lot of new things, and look forward to the new things that you can try out. Try out whatever feels appealing to you. Let this thing be your fidget toy, you know? You can have a lot of fun breaking stuff here, and don't be too hell-bent on winning the game. That's something that's really important with roguelikes, I think. Classic roguelikes are the incarnation of that principle that sometimes the journey is the goal itself. So, with that out of the way, I have nothing more to say about this one. I hope you enjoy your time. If you have still questions about it, ask away. If you feel like there's a couple of tips and tricks you might want to add, I'd love to hear them. Leave me a thumbs up if you enjoyed, and of course, consider subscribing to my channel. There's daily content coming up there. All you need to do is hit that notification bell. Also, check out my description box. There is not only those timestamps I was talking about, but also my Twitch channel, where I do streaming quite regularly. I'd love to see you guys there. Have a good one, and see you soon.